Greetings and welcome to the Chicamacomico Life-Saving Station Historic Site and Museum. I'm James Charley, Site Manager.
Good day, I'm Warren Judge. I'm Chairman of the Dare County Board of Commissioners. It's my pleasure to welcome everybody to the program today. In Dare County, we're most appreciative of the United States Coast Guard, the fine men and women who serve every day, protecting us and protecting those who visit here and who travel offshore in boats. A brave bunch of people, many of them our native sons and daughters. We salute them, and we'd like to welcome everybody to Chicamacomico.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Chicamacomico Life-Saving Station Historic Site and Museum. We have a very special program here today. As you know, because you're here for this, today is an even more special program. You're in a special place. This is a special crowd because there are not many people that know about this, and we have some very special guests, and two of which I want to introduce to you right now. Spearheading a lot of what's happening here today is the Dare County Director of Emergency Management, Sanderson. Would you take a bow, Sandy? And we're extremely honored and pleased to have with us the Commissioner of the Dare County Commissioners, Mr. Warren Judge. And he's going to make a very special presentation.
Well, thank you, James. I appreciate that. And thank you all for coming today, and welcome to Dare County. Welcome to Hatteras Island. Welcome to the village of Rodanthe. As James mentioned, this is some very hallowed ground that we're all standing and sitting on today. Dare County is proud of our place in the history of this great nation of ours. This nation of immigrants, and if we're a nation of immigrants, then we're ground zero right here on Hatteras Island. Long before there was an Ellis Island and a Statue of Liberty, there were the Diamond Shoals, and there was Hatteras Island, this sliver of land that juts way out into the Atlantic Ocean. And 400 years ago and more, ships would find a peril in the Diamond Shoals or a storm that blew up. And those lucky few that were able to survive and make it to land, now we're in a brave new world, a place that they had to cope by themselves and with each other. Generations later, those same families, generations later, their sons manned the U.S. life-saving stations. And this here at Chicamacomico is a prime example. And today, their current is the Coast Guard. The life-saving station, life-saving stations became the U.S. Coast Guard. Life-saving service became the U.S. Coast Guard. And we're here today to pay honor, Dare County, to pay honor to the men and women who back in October last year risked their lives and put it before everything else, put their life before. They risked their life to save members of the HMS Bounty, the ship, the replica of the ship that got into peril right off of our coast here. And brave men and women went to their rescue. And so it's my pleasure. We have a lieutenant from the Coast Guard with us today. It is my pleasure that Sandy's going to help me. We're going to present this. This is an artist rendering of that life-saving crew that you're going to see reenacted tomorrow. Only this is at night. Tomorrow they do it during the day. And the regulations don't say a damn word about coming back. They just say go. Down here we have a replica of the authentic badge that was worn at this life-saving station. And if we can get these gentlemen to come forward. And Sandy, you want me to read the back, or? No. Okay. But, Lieutenant, you just heard a few minutes worth of Dare County history, and our sons and daughters for hundreds of years have served in the armed forces, and more specifically the Coast Guard. And we take great pride in that in Dare County, and we thank you. You are a great partner to us. Not only do you all stand at the ready to rescue people in danger at sea, but you help us in search and rescue. You help us with wildfires. You help us in so many ways. and you all have become a fabric of our lives and in our community. Your families, your wives, and we so much appreciate it. But thank you from the bottom of our hearts for those events on that day back in October 2012 where you brought these people home safely. Thank you, sir.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much. That was really nice. It's great to be appreciated, and just like we appreciate the Chicamacomico Life-Saving Station for bringing the historical significance of the life-saving service to life. I've been out here and seen the recreation, the life-saving drill, and it is a great sight to see. It's very historic, and if you haven't got to see it, I really recommend it. I'll try to keep this mic, get the wind off of the mic, but anyway, if I'll kind of tell my story a little bit about the events that transpired the night of the HMS Bounty sinking. And with me here, I have Petty Officer Neil Mulder. He was the flight mech for one of the helicopters that was on scene that night that hoisted so many of the survivors back to safety. You may know him from the YouTube video. That is his voice and his hand hoisting the survivors that made it public. So my name is Lieutenant Wes McIntosh. I'm the aircraft commander for the C-130 that was the first airplane on scene that night. And so I'll kind of run through the events as I saw them that night, and then I'll hand the mic over to Neil, and he'll kind of take you through the rescue and returning them back to shore. And if you have any questions or anything, just feel free to speak up and ask. But the way it started that weekend when the hurricane was coming out at Elizabeth City, we only have one runway that's big enough for a C-130. And if the winds get too strong out of the north or south and the runway is wet, then we have to relocate the C-130 because because we can't take off. So anytime there's a hurricane coming or a tropical storm that looks like it's going to meet those conditions, then we go ahead and pre-position. That weekend on Saturday, me and my crew, we took off and went to Raleigh, and we were actually staying in a hotel in Raleigh, right by the airport, and we were on the ready for Sunday as the storm was approaching. So as we were in the hotel Sunday, for the most part of the day, we had no calls. Mainly, the crew was just sitting in the hotel, watching the hurricane on TV, watching some Sunday football, and checking up on our families back at home, back in Elizabeth City, and making sure that they were safe. And then at about 9:30 that night, we got a call from the ODO, who's the Operations Duty Officer back in Elizabeth City. We had a SAR case. Our case was a HMS Bounty. They had received, the ship's owners had received an email from the crew on the Bounty, and they kind of gave us a brief rundown. It was a 180-foot tall ship with a 150-foot mast. They said that there were 16 or 17 people on board, and they were having generator problems, and they were taking on water, and that was the extent of it. They couldn't make radio communications with them. So at that point, we didn't know what kind of distress that the Bounty was in, if they were in even any kind of distress. So what we did was we went ahead and took off out of Raleigh, and the plan was to take off and head just offshore southeast from here, and go. The worst part of the hurricane, the outer bands of the storm, were just offshore here, and we were going to stay outside of the worst part of the storm, and try to make radio communications with them and see if we could find out if they needed any help. So at 11 o'clock that night on Sunday, we took off, and We took off out of Raleigh-Durham International. We were the only ones flying that night. There was a hurricane coming. Everybody else had gone for drier ground. And there we were, taking off, heading towards the coast. And the air traffic controller, as we were taking off, actually was pretty lighthearted, and he gave us our clearance out to the east, and he said, "Hey, are you going out there to Hurricane Sandy?" And we said, "Yes." He said, "Good luck." So we headed out towards off the coast of Cape Hatteras, actually down south of Cape Hatteras, to stay south of the hurricane. And as we took off, we found we had a couple of malfunctions with our aircraft systems. We found out that we had a anti-icing problem, and we also had a weather radar problem. And let me tell you, going into a hurricane, the weather radar problem is not what you want to see, but that's what showed up. And luckily, we have a backup radar on our plane, the mission radar, and it can actually detect some weather as well. So we felt comfortable enough to fly out there. We flew out at 7,000 feet, just over the clouds. There was a deck of clouds at 7,000, and then there was a big full moon up above it. That was a nice thing. We had a big full moon that night, so we could actually see the clouds. And we were low enough to stay underneath the icing. So we flew out, and as we were approaching the shore, we were planning on heading out and going into holding just south of the position where they got the last email from the Bounty. So we went out, and we were on our way there, and about 100 miles from their position, I just went ahead and tuned up channel 16 and made a radio call over the radio and said, "HMS Bounty, this is Coast Guard 2004 on channel 16, how copy?" I didn't necessarily expect a reply right away, but it was. Almost immediately, loud and clear, was, "Coast Guard C-130, this is the HMS Bounty, got you loud and clear." So I asked them for their position, number of souls on board, and the nature of their distress. And what they told me was they told me their position, which was pretty close to where their last email was from. They told me they had 16 people on board, so we knew they had 16 on board, and they told us that they were currently without engines. Their engines were not working, their generators had failed, and they were on battery power only. So their radio was working only on battery power, and once that battery exhausted, they were without radio, except for the kind of handheld radios they may have. In addition, they said that they had about 6 feet of water on board, and they were taking on water at about a rate of 1 foot per hour. So their situation was getting worse. And that was obviously a bit of a surprise. We didn't think that they were in that much of a distress when we took off, but it turns out that their situation had deteriorated. So at that point, we could kind of look out to the left, out kind of off the coast of Hatteras, and we could see the hurricane. We could actually visually see it. We have night vision goggles that we fly with, and that coupled with the full moon, you could actually look out there on the horizon and see these tall storm clouds, just like a ominous wall of clouds that was out there. And that was exactly where the crew of the Bounty was that night. So we radioed our headquarters sector, which our sector is located in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we asked them, we told them what we found out, and they asked us if we could drop pumps to the ship. Now we fly with a dewatering pump that is the P100 pump. It pumps out water at a rate of 100 gallons per minute. So it's a pump that would be helpful for them, but it's designed for a smaller boat. It's not designed for a tall ship at all. But we thought if we could drop it out of the C-130 to the ship, it could provide them some assistance. And that was what we could provide them at the time. So we went ahead and we decided to go into the storm and see if it was feasible to drop the pump to them, and also just to get to actually see the ship, just to get eyes on them and see what it looked like, see what kind of situation they were in. So at that point, when we talked it over with the crew, just to make sure everybody was on the same page, we're getting ready to fly into a hurricane, and is everybody comfortable with it? At that point, the Coast Guard spirit kind of showed through. Everybody was ready to go help. They were like, absolutely, let's go in there and see if we can help. So we turned to the north, and as we could see the storm clouds coming, we could see it on the weather radar back in the back. As we penetrated into the storm, the wind was off of our nose, and then as soon as we hit the wall of clouds, just immediately, wind hit us off the left side, about 80 or 90 knots from the left side, and it immediately hit heavy turbulence. Turbulence just buffeting us up and down. The rain was ferocious. It started hitting the windscreen. I kind of say it was like driving down the interstate and hitting a heavy rainstorm, and then the rain, the sound of the rain just shattering on your car's windshield. It sounded like that on the windscreen of the plane. You couldn't see anything in front of you because of the rain, and the visibility was too low. On the wings, our wings are designed to flex a little bit due to turbulence and just to maintain elasticity, but they were bouncing up and down. I'd say probably plus or minus 6 feet, buffeting up and down. And anything that wasn't tied down to the plane was going to be thrown around. People were in their seats, buckled up, but if they weren't, then they were being thrown around the plane. So that was kind of to set the scene for flying into this thing. And meanwhile, we were descending out of 7,000 feet, and we were going to fly down to 1,000 feet initially to see if we could get below the rain and the clouds and see if we could see the ship. So we went to their exact location where they said they were at 1,000 feet. As we were leveling off at 1,000 feet, it was obvious we weren't going to be able to see them. We were still in the clouds. We looked straight down, couldn't see anything out of the airplane. It was just we were still in the solid clouds in the driving rain. But we went ahead and flew over the position of the ship at 1,000 feet and saw nothing. So we made a decision to come around and fly down to 500 feet. So, to kind of give you an idea of what we were facing, the airplane was being buffeted up and down. It was impossible to hold an exact altitude. We couldn't hold it within basically plus or minus 200 feet is what we could maintain. So if we went down to 500 feet, then you take into account the safety margin of plus or minus 200 feet. That would keep us 300 feet off the water. And keeping in mind that the mast of the ship was at 150 feet, that would give us an extra 150 feet of safety. So that was as low as I was willing to go that night. And we came down to 500 feet and flew back around. Our general practice for the C-130, since we're not a helicopter, we can't stay there and hover. We have to fly over the position of the ship and then do a racetrack pattern, basically a left-hand pattern, and go about 3 to 5 miles downwind and come back, and we get about a 3-mile run-in straight ahead, and that's when we hope to see the boat or the ship, and that's when we also hope to be able to drop if needed. So we came back. I went down to 500 feet, and we flew back around over the top of the ship. It was still very hard to make out anything. We could look straight down at 500 feet. We could actually see the white caps in the sea down there. And the sea just looked amazingly angry. It was dark. The white caps on top of these huge seas were just getting the wind was just ripping the tops of them off. There was sea spray going sideways. The water was turning from all directions, and it was a real nasty sight down there. For those of you who are familiar with the way that the Atlantic out here looks in the middle of a storm, you know what I'm talking about. It was bad. So, still looking forward, we couldn't see a whole lot straight ahead. We could only look straight down or just barely in front of our plane and see anything. So we went and flew over the plane, or the Bounty, their last minute coordinates. Our radar usually can pick up vessels on the surface, but because the waves and the seas were so huge that night, it was masking the radar return of the ship. Even though the ship was 180 feet long, it was still masking the return of it. So we couldn't find it on the radar, so we had to do it visually. And as we were approaching the location of the Bounty at 500 feet, that's when we had our night vision goggles on, and very faintly through the rain, I saw a light. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think they probably heard the plane flying overhead, and they shined a light up there at us. And I immediately saw it. I said it's off the right-hand side. I was sitting in the left seat. My co-pilot was sitting in the right seat. We saw it off the right-hand side. So I went ahead and steered the plane over to the right a little bit to fly directly over it. And as it passed down the right-hand side, I asked my co-pilot, I was like, do you see the ship down there? And he said he did. And I asked him what it looked like. And he said, kind of jokingly, he said, it looks like a big pirate ship in the middle of a hurricane. I was like, well, that pretty much says it all. And he actually said it was listening about 45 degrees to starboard. It was getting battered broadside by waves. It was obvious it was not making way. It looked like it was at the mercy of the sea that night. So we flew over it, and we came back around, and the decision point at this point was, should we drop a dewatering pump? So as the aircraft commander, I had to make that decision. My drop masters back in the back were ready to go. That's what they trained for. That's what they're ready to do. They were looking to help out some folks. So I had to take a step back and say, well, what we normally do, and we train for these drops all the time out here in the Altamont, and actually some off of on the inland side of Cape Hatteras with the auxiliary, and I know we have some auxiliary folks here today, but that training really helps us. We get very good at it. We get very scientific. It's something that we have charts for that tells us if the winds are coming from this direction at this speed, then we have to set this setting in our plane to -13, and we have to drop at 15 seconds. And the idea is, even though we're at 200 feet is what the drops are flying for, we can drop something and basically put the leading edge of the rope over the hull of the boat or the ship, as it may be. So, but the problem is, we train for this with the auxiliary out here in the Altamont Sound when it's a day like today, where it's nice and sunny. There may be a little bit of chop on the sound, but overall there's not 20 or 30 foot waves, and it's not at night in a hurricane. So the accuracy was going to be off if we were to attempt this drop. We practiced the drops from 200 feet. All of our charts are based off of 200 feet. But if we were to drop this night, we're going to be dropping from 500 feet, which we don't have data for. So that would make it even more inaccurate. On top of that, if we were to drop it exactly where we wanted to drop it, what the ideal thing would be to happen is the pump, which is a 75-pound pump, would fall into the ocean, and then the wind would carry the rope over the deck of the ship, and then some of the ship's crew would have to come out onto the ship in the middle of this hurricane with waves washing over the top and try to hoist it in. And that could cause some more danger than they were already in. If we didn't drop it exactly right, then we could drop the pump on top of the wooden ship, and a 75-pound pump coming through the deck of a wooden ship. Yeah. So they were already in. So, and if everything went exactly right and we got the pump onto the ship, my thought process was, they have 6 feet of water on a tall ship, and this pump really won't do them that much good if they do get it on board. So I made the decision not to drop it. And so I told Sector that. I told Sector we would not be able to drop it. I told the ship's crew that it just wasn't a safe evolution right then to drop the pump. So at that point, I asked my crew how they were feeling. And one thing in aviation, if you ever ask your crew how they're feeling over the ICS and you hear silence, that's not a good thing. And that's exactly what I heard. I heard silence. I looked back behind me and I saw some green faces and some people who didn't look very happy. Everybody was feeling pretty airsick at this point. It was bumping us around pretty good. So there's nothing really at that point we could do down below. So I made a decision to go back up high to 7,000 feet where the air was smoother. And we orbited overhead the ship at 7,000 feet, let everybody get a reprieve, and we were also able to use the radios were better so we could talk to Sector more clearly and talk to our home base more clearly. So that was all about, I was going down about from the hours of midnight to 2 a.m. and we were out there past 2 a.m. and between 2 a.m. and 4:45 is when the ship actually went down. So basically from the hours of midnight to 4:45 we were out there on scene with them. Somewhere around between 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. it was obvious that their situation was worsening, that it was going downhill. We heard they updated us. They told us that the water rate coming on board was now about 2 feet per hour, so it was coming in twice as fast as it was when we first got there. And they said that they were now getting more like 8 feet of water on board. They said that the water was actually coming in through the individual planks of the wooden hull. If any of you are familiar with the tall ships, the water was actually smashing up against the side of the wooden hull and coming through the individual planks. It wasn't actually washing over top and coming in. So we gave all this information to Sector. We asked the crew of the Bounty to put on life jackets. They already had on their survival vests. They already had a good plan for abandoning ship. They said that if they did have to abandon ship, they had 2 life rafts. They were going to divide up into the 2 life rafts, and they had E-probes on each of the life rafts. Those are emergency positioning indication systems, so that way, if they did go overboard, their radios would alert us and let us know exactly where they were. So we said that sounded great. It was obvious they had a good plan for abandoning ship. They said that they thought they could make it until 8 o'clock in the morning, and if the winds and the seas didn't subside by then, and they didn't have any help by then, they said that they would probably be going down. So, and they said they didn't want to wait until the last minute, so they said at 7:30, if they hadn't got any assistance by then, they were planning on orderly abandoning ship. So at 7:30, that was the plan. So I radioed that back to our home base, and they said that the weather back in Elizabeth City was too bad to launch the helicopters. It wasn't going to happen at that point, but they thought probably by 7:30 that they could have helicopters in the air come out to our position. We asked, and we made sure that they knew that we needed 2 helicopters. They at first were talking about bringing pumps out to dewater this ship, but we kind of talked about it, and we said, hey, this ship is big, it's probably going to need more than that. You probably are going to be sending out helicopters to bring people off the ship. So we need 2 helicopters to be able to grab everybody. And so that was the game plan. But at about 4:45, and all their radio communications up to this point had been really professional, really calm and collected. It was amazing how calm they were actually for the situation they were in. And it was kind of an eerie situation with the Bounty out there, us in the C-130. We had asked Sector to relay to various ships out there to see if they could come and provide some assistance, but they were unable to. It was too dangerous. You could see the ships kind of to the southeast out there, south of the storm, waiting, kind of following the storm as it moved north. So at about 4:45, unlike any of their other radio calls, we just got one brief very rushed, abrupt call over Channel 16 and said, "We're abandoning ship. We're abandoning ship." And that was it. That was the only call we heard. So we radioed back immediately, and we said, you know, Bounty, this is the Coast Guard C-130. Understand you're abandoning ship. What are your plans? And we heard nothing back. We didn't hear a single thing back. And every call before then had been more calm and collected, so we could tell this one was out of the ordinary. I think we all on the ship knew, on the C-130 knew what happened. We knew that they had gotten forced to get off the ship before they were ready. So at that point, we transitioned from a dropping a pump to dropping survival kit. We have a survival kit that consists of 2 life rafts with a survival kit in the middle that includes some supplies like water and survival equipment. But we had to transition the plane to drop that. To do that, our drop masters back in the back of the plane had to drag the 75-pound dewatering pump off the ramp. Meanwhile, they were getting buffeted around by this wind, holding on to the sides of the plane, onto the floor, anything they could grab a hold of to keep themselves from being thrown up against the side of the plane. And they dragged the dewatering pump up to the front part of the plane, and they grabbed these survival kits, which are about 150 pounds, and dragged it back into the ramp. Opened up the ramp. Meanwhile, you're basically opening up the ramp in the middle of a hurricane with driving rain coming in the back. The only thing that's holding these guys in the back of the plane is their safety harness that straps from their safety belt down to the deck of the C-130. But basically, they're standing out here on a ramp in the driving rain, looking down at the ocean. And so we set up to drop that survival kit. As we're coming around to the location of the Bounty, because we couldn't see them when they made that radio call, we came around to their position, and we actually saw the ship, and it was totally on its starboard side. It had totally capsized 90 degrees to the water, and we could see debris, we could see various lights out in the water. It was still too dark and too rainy to actually make out any people in the water, but we could see just debris strewn about. We kept making radio calls, hoping that they could hear us, but we could not hear them, and we could not hear any reply back. So we went ahead and we couldn't tell if they were all stuck in the ship. We thought they could possibly be strewn out individually in the water. We thought they could possibly, hopefully, have made it into their life rafts, but we just didn't know at that point. So in case they were out in the water alone, the idea was we're going to drop some life rafts in a survival kit upwind of where they would be, and then the wind would drag these life rafts in the survival kit. It would be connected by a 1,000-foot line, and it would drift slowly back to their position. And if they were in the water, they could grab onto that line, pull themselves onto a life raft. So we dropped those upwind. As we came back around, we came back to the position where we dropped, and we saw the life rafts. Even though they were big, heavy life rafts with sea anchors, they were still kind of flipping in over in just because of the strong wind. By that point, we saw 2 other life rafts in addition to ours. It was the life rafts from the ship, and those had steady lights on it. The 2 life rafts that we dropped had flashing lights on, so we could distinguish them. We came back around. We dropped a self-locating native marker buoy, which is a electronically transmitting device that keeps the position of where the debris is drifting, so we could find the location of the drift, or the helicopters could find it whenever they made it out. As soon as we radioed this back to sector, they said that the 2 helicopters from Elizabeth City had taken off. In addition, another C-130 from Elizabeth City had also taken off, which was good because we were quickly running out of fuel. We were about to hit our bingo fuel to where we had to leave and go back to Raleigh. But we were relieved to hear that there were 2 helicopters on the way, and we let the crew of the Bounty know over the radio in case they could hear us, but I don't think they could in the end. And at that point, we heard the next C-130 arriving on scene. We gave them a quick pass down of what all they could expect to see, what happened that night, where everybody was out in the water, or where the debris was in the water. I said that we didn't know if 16 people were trapped in the ship. We didn't know if they were in the life rafts or if they were out at sea. We didn't know if we had just seen 16 lives lost that night. And well, we were happy that more helicopters were coming out, and luckily Neil and his crew were on their way out, and we gave a quick pass down to the scene. And we left. We went back towards Raleigh to try to get back in there because we were still not too sure if we could make it into Raleigh. We had to keep enough gas to be able to try to get into Raleigh and fail and then make it all the way to Wilmington, just in case. Luckily we weren't able to get into Raleigh, but on the way back, we were all battered. We were all pretty physically and emotionally beat up from having been up all night watching all this and talking to the crew of the Bounty, listening to their story and then hearing them go over so abruptly. And we kind of felt like we developed kind of a kindred bond out there, and then to hear them go over and not know if they made it or not was pretty trying to us. In addition, the physical part of it, we've been up all night. We had been flying all night. Everybody was pretty airsick, and that whole thing, we're all pretty down on the way back before we heard the results of what the helo crew was saying. And it wasn't until we were on the way back towards Raleigh that we heard that the crew of the helicopters were hoisting survivors. At that point, it just uplifted our crew. I mean, everybody was just a sigh of relief. We didn't know if it was one person or if it was 16 people that they were grabbing out of the water that we were just glad somebody was.
Survivors coming out of the raft. Survivors in the water with Dan.
Roger, I'm still getting this all situated back here.
Roger. Alright, he's starting to swim.
Altitude.
40 feet.
Anytime you're ready.
Just moving the last couple of things.
Altitude.
Okay. I'm ready.
Everything remains the same.
Altitude.
He's got the survivor, so we'll keep it with a basket. Brief is complete.
Roger, rescue checklist complete, ready for one basket recovery of survivor. From what's the altitude, sir?
It's going to vary between 50 and 30 feet.
Altitude.
From wherever we're at.
Altitude.
Roger. Left swimmer's underneath your door.
2 and 30 and
Seat
601
commands.
inside.
Roger. Basket just outside cabin.
Altitude.
Got a couple big ones coming in. Big ones.
And
Bringing basket inside cabin.
he actually got pulled pretty far away from the raft for being so far out, so we're just planning on picking him up.
Roger, I'm eyes in the cabin also.
Roger, got eyes on the swimmer. There's no way he'll be able to swim that far.
So we're going to have to pick him up?
Yep.
Altitude.
Roger, stand by. Disconnecting basket. Basket's disconnected. Plane's going outdoor. Plane's all the way down. Way down, halfway down. Hold, easy back. Back 10. Easy left. Left 5. We're right over the raft. Back 10.
Confirm the total number of people you're dealing with.
Hold.
03, standby.
Easy right and forward right. 10.
You got about 5 seconds.
And I'm not going to make that. 4, 5. Hold. Hold. East forward. 4, 5. Hold. And back 10. Swimmers at the hook. Back 10. Back 10. Easy left. Left 5. And swimmers out your 3 o'clock and right, forward right. Right 15.
Got him inside.
Roger. Right 10. Hold. Hold. Frank, take the load. We have the load. Clear move back and left 20.
Clear back and left.
I feel so bad. I'm jerking him around the water.
That's all right.
And the swimmer's just underneath the cabin door.
We're going to start transitioning forward.
Roger.
Where did it go?
Got the other raft in sight.
12 o'clock.
Find out from the 03 if there's still a marker next to the PIW if they see the PIW.
036031.
Go.
36031, we're transitioning forward to the other raft for the additional 3 POB. Do you still have a marker on the PIW?
Over the horizon.
Check, please. Swimmer's going down. How we down?
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. You guys are great.
And hold. Am I good?
You're good.
Roger. Swimmer's going into the water. Water. And left 5.
You got about 20 seconds. You got plenty of time.
Swimmer's away. Swimmer's coming out at your 4 o'clock. Voice hook's halfway up.
Cease commands.
Roger. Voice hook is just outside cabin door. Voice hook's inside the cabin.
How does it look like?
Roger. I have target inside of my 3 o'clock. Bass is going out cabin door. Bass outside cabin. Bass going down. Bass halfway down. Bass is holding 15 feet off water. Easy back. Hold. Basket is in water. Survivor's going in basket. Easy forward.
You got about 10 seconds.
Easy forward. Easy left. Left 5. Left 5.
4, 3.
Left 5. Hold. Forward 10.
You got about 20
Hold.
seconds of relative calm.
Hold. Trying to take the load. Taking the load. We have the load. Clearing me back and left 30. Swimmer is coming out at your 3 o'clock. Bass is halfway up.
Cease commands.
Roger, stop you guys from swinging.
That raft flipped too.
Oh, good, it'll go faster. 2003, 6031.
6031, 2003.
This raft flipped as well. We've got a 2 PIW.
Roger, copy, 2 PIW. Bass, get inside cabin.
We may have to pick Dan up again. Alright, I see the
Survivor's getting out of the basket. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Alright, may begin the hoist. Send the bear hook down.
Roger, I have target in sight. Hoist 6 on its way down. Hoist 6 going down. Hoist 6 is halfway down. Forward 15. Forward 10. Hold. Forward 5. Forward 5. Forward 5. And hold. Easy right.
All right, you've got this swell, about 3 seconds, and a big one behind it.
And back 5. Swimmers at the hook. Back 5. Hold. Waiting for ready pickup. Easy right. Hold. Trying to take the load. Taking the load. We have the load.
Just hold him below the aircraft and we'll just reposition by the raft.
Roger, I'm going to bring him halfway up. Got him.
Got the raft inside. It's righted itself. How about that? Raft is coming out the right side. Trying to stop the wind. I'm not swinging Dan too much.
No, I stopped him.
Right.
I think I threw my shoulder out too. Lowering him in the water. Hold.
You got plenty of room.
Swimmers in the water. Swimmers away. Swimmers okay. Clear move up, back and left 30.
Back and left. You've got a nice little rain shower. We're going to be sitting in here for a little while.
Cease commands.
Roger, swimmer. Alright, you got him inside. Hoist 6 halfway up.
Looks like
Out.
there's 2 people remaining in there. All right, there's one more person in the raft. Guy was hiding. Come on, Dan, reach that.
Bring a basket in the cabin.
There, he's got the drogue chute. All right, he's got the tow line.
10 seconds, and then you've got one big one.
Roger.
So we're going to be sitting on top of a plateau here for a little bit.
And fast is going down.
Fairly calm stuff. We've got about 40 to 60 seconds before it gets gnarly again.
Fast is going down. Easy forward right. Hold. Easy left. Easy forward. Hold. And back and left 5. Back 5. Swimmers at basket. Hold. E and to left 5. Left 5. Forward and left 5. Forward 5. Alright, ready to pick up. Forward 5. Alright, take the load. Hold. Taking the load. We have the load.
Clear.
And basket. Halfway up, swimmer is at your 3 o'clock. And this one's swinging really bad. Yeah, swimmer in sight.
Roger, cease commands.
Roger. Fastest just outside cabin door.
You can pull away from the raft quite a bit there.
Bring a basket to the cabin.
Sector North Carolina, Coast Guard Rescue.
Check with the O3 now, see if they can start. See if they want to have a contingency plan. Let's just go to Cherry Point, drop some people off, hot gas, and come back.
200-36031.
312-3.
Hey, we're just getting ready to pick up our rescue swimmer. Do you guys have a contingency plan so far as G?